Hi everybody, it's Leah with Family Heritage Living. I thought I'd go ahead and read a story today. I kind of read through it briefly, and it's kind of a sad story to an extent. It's just not one of those ones where you think of time long past, no warm fire. There's separation amongst family, and it happens, and it happened then and it happens today. I think it's vital to sometimes to realize how much we've really been given. Most of us have a very easy life, even with its difficult times. And I think there's a lot of reasons that, a lot of ways to count our blessings, a lot of things we can hear. So I hope this story just helps you to consider what you may have today, the many blessings that you may already possess, even if you've come through a hard time. Most of us have stories of some sort, whether we've never been separated from family or not. We still all have had struggles, and most of those things over time can be used to make us better, or to make us more compassionate to others and have sympathy and maybe give some understanding. So, all right, so today's story was written back, I don't know when it was written, but it was concerning the turn of the century, 1900. The author writes, "When I was 6 years old, my mother was left with a family of 4. I was the oldest. With the help of an uncle, somehow we squeezed through the following winter and summer. Back then, there was no mother's aid or Social Security to help mothers. That fall, Mother placed me and my sister Mildred with the Shakers. Mother had grown up only a few miles from a community of Shakers, so knew that we would be well cared for, receive a good education, and a good religious training, which seemed quite important to her. On October 3rd, 1900, I was then 7 years old. Yes, that dates me, doesn't it? We were taken to our new home among the Shakers. The fall school term was well underway, and I was enrolled at once as the newest scholar. Mother had taught me to read, so I had no difficulty keeping up with the others my age. Our school was a public school and was attended not only by the Shaker children, but by any children living in that district. These were mostly children of the hired help. That fall, there were about 30 pupils attending school, but by spring, many of the older ones had left school to go to work. At first, we were inspected by a school committee who visited us quite frequently. Later, they were replaced by a school superintendent who had several other country schools to oversee, and he made his rounds on a bicycle. Music was an important part of our education. There was a melodeon on the platform in our schoolroom, and our music teacher used both the melodeon and a mandolin to teach us beginning songs such as 20 Froggies Went to School, I Had a Little Pussycat When I Was Only 5, and The Pumpkin Pie is King of All the Pies That Ever Were Made. I still remember and can sing many of the old songs. As we outgrew the kiddie songs, we were taught folk songs and so forth. By the time we had graduated from the 9th grade, we had taken tests in Latin, algebra, and bookkeeping, as well as the 3 R's. Our teacher was a Shaker sister who also had to study, sometimes just ahead of us. My school days had been some of my happiest memories. Music was important to our everyday life. One large corner room was set aside to be used for visiting and get-togethers. In here were 2 pianos, an organ, and other instruments. Here we rehearsed the hymns we were to use in our following Sunday meeting. Sunday school was also held there for juniors and seniors. Here were held our Sunday night Christian Endeavor meetings. These were conducted by our older sisters who took turns in leading them. These meetings were open to one and all, and were attended by some of the hired help. We especially enjoyed rehearsal nights as we could visit or play games afterwards, but we usually broke up at 9 p.m. as early to bed, early to rise was practiced here. As among all farmers, and the Shakers were farmers, most of their income derived from the sale of their farm products. Our day commenced at 5 a.m. when the getting up bell was rung. There was a bell set in the small belfry on top of the main building and roped down through the floors to the dining room, where it was rung by the sister on dining room duty. It was rung at 6 a.m. for breakfast, and every last little chick had to be in the dining room with the adults. The bell also rung at 11:30 to call them in to come in from the fields, woods, or wherever again at noon, and 6 p.m. for supper. It also rung in case of fire or for any other emergency. The dining room was a large one, and the brethren sat at one end of the room and the sisters at the other. At each meal, before we sat down, grace was said by all in silence. Meal was eaten in silence until the last brother had left the room. Then discussions and planning were in order. The first thing small children were taught was to knit. Then came sewing, followed by other skills. This was very essential, as these were the days of home dressmaking. As we grew old enough to be dependable, we were assigned more responsible tasks such as dairy management, dining room duty, or working in the kitchen. We changed assignment every 4 weeks to the day, always starting anew on Sunday morning. All was not work here, however. We were taken on treats, perhaps a cruise on a nearby lake, a visit to a museum, or a picnic at some park where we could ride the small ponies. It was always a treat just to go shopping with one of the older sisters. And let's not forget the winter sleigh rides. A group of us often went on hikes on our own property, perhaps after arbutus, which grew abundantly at one of our side hills, perhaps after berries or later chestnuts. We always felt perfectly safe, even after being chased by cattle, especially when we carried a pail. We always enjoyed these hikes. Visitation was practiced to a large extent then among the members of other communities, so we would get to see and visit with other members of other groups. At that time, several other Shaker communities were thriving, as at Waterville and Mount Lebanon in New York State, Enfield, Connecticut, Hancock and Shirley in Massachusetts, Canterbury and Infell, both in New Hampshire, and Alfred and Sabbath Day Lake in Maine. Mostly, 3 or 4 sisters would travel together by train. Not many autos then, and one brother to help them with the luggage. I especially remember the 4 sisters and one brother from Canterbury who traveled widely, entertaining as a singing group. The 4 sisters performed a perfect quartet. My life there came to an end in the late fall of 1909 when my mother sent for us. She had remarried, but her health had reached a very low point. She had developed a serious heart condition and needed help. I did not lose track of my Shaker friends, for my teacher wrote me faithfully as long as she was able. What a pity that such a peaceful, kind, conscientious, God-fearing group should not endure. Many a kindly pat on the head or a friendly arm around your shoulder, as well as many of the gestures, prove their kindliness. In business deals, their word could be depended on, and their sincerity in their daily life proved their godliness. Perhaps their laxity in attempting conversation may have had its impact. Not one member of the group where I lived had come there as a convert. They had been placed there as a small child, and when they were old enough to make a decision, had no other home to go to, and knew no other way of life. Simply stayed on. And that's the end of that story. So I don't know if you guys know anything about the Shaker religion. She states how does she say this? She says, what a pity such a peaceful, kind, conscientious, God-fearing group should not endure. But they were their own downfall. And I will read to you what is said here. They practiced a celibate and communal utopian lifestyle, pacifism, uniform charismatic worship, and their model of equality of the sexes. Some of that's all good, okay? But it was, if you're celibate, you're going to die off. I mean, that's just the way it works. Unless, of course, you are able to convert new folk. So, interesting story, somewhat of a sad tone, yet at least she ended up in safety with her sister. So that's always good to hear. And I guess on that note, I'm going to end this video, and we will talk soon. Hopefully I'll have another reading here soon. So maybe a more uplifting one. All right, thanks for watching. God bless.